the Refugee Convention is a document that was written 70 years ago, and it's constantly being reinterpreted by courts. And one of the interesting things about the European Court is that Britain is, if you like, in breach of its regulations and rules far less than quite a lot of other European countries. And so the British legal and judicial and parliamentary system
Yes.
actually will have some weight
Yeah.
with judges in Strasbourg.
You're the leader of the One Nation group of MPs who are seen as slightly to the left of the Conservative Party. Tell us what your opinion is of today's announcement, and will your group back it?
Yes, we met the Prime Minister this morning, and the overwhelming feeling was that it's absolutely necessary. We've got to stop the small boats. We need to do something radical to do that. We don't think it's compassionate to sit and watch tens of thousands of people put their lives at risk every year in the interest of criminal gangs. And also, of course, it's very bad for confidence in the immigration system. And as One Nation Conservatives, we want to, if you like, to lower the temperature of politics. We want to have a calm and reasoned debate. And that's more difficult if people feel that the immigration system is out of control. So we broadly speaking, support this. We're very keen, of course, that it should stay within both the law and our international obligations. And so a lot of us have been talking to the Attorney General about the legalities of it.
That's interesting, Damian, because we've just had a discussion with a lawyer which is looking at whether or not this piece of legislation, as announced by Suella and the PM today, is going to be ultimately compatible with our legal obligations. You and your group, do you think you're going to back this legislation come what may, even if that might mean a confrontation on the ECHR or other refugee conventions?
Well, we don't think that we should leave the ECHR, and we don't think that this will require us to do that, or indeed that it breaks our obligations under the Refugee Convention. And of course, to some extent, we're all having hypothetical discussions because we haven't seen the actual bill or investigated it in detail yet. And of course, when Parliament passes a law, that supersedes previous law. So, for instance, important things like putting a legal duty on the Home Secretary to remove people who are here illegally, that's a very strong signal in law, which will, if you like, trump some of the other pieces of legislation that have gone before. So there is quite a complex interaction between different laws, but in the end, Parliament has the power, the democratic power, to make the law that then tells the courts what to do.
That's a fascinating answer, Damian. And if you're telling me that your group, the One Nation group of left of centre, as it were, in the Tory party spectrum, are minded to back this plan, that suggests the plan could well go through, at least as far as the Conservative Party, the bulk of your fellow MPs are concerned. But your argument is also based on your judgment that there's no breach here of international law. Let's talk about the Human Rights Convention. And I'm deeply interested in how you come to that conclusion. A couple of obvious examples. Under the Refugee Convention, which we have signed as a country, it is perfectly legal to seek asylum in this country. It doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it's not illegal to seek asylum. And we keep hearing ministers say that it is illegal. Now, that seems to run up against the basis of international law and holding people in detention pending agreements with countries to send them to where those agreements don't exist. There are no such agreements beyond Albania and hoped for on the government side Rwanda. How do you square those contradictions?
Well, they're not contradictions until you get to the end of the legislative process. And I imagine that what the government's going to do is spend a lot of time and energy while this bill is going through both the House of Commons and the House of Lords.
Yes.
I'm not unrealistic. It may take some time to get through the House of Lords, though I agree with you. I think it will get through the House of Commons, even though Labour is going to vote against it foolishly in political terms, because this legislation will be extremely popular. In terms of the international obligations, I think that the Refugee Convention is a document that was written 70 years ago, and it's constantly being reinterpreted by courts. And one of the interesting things about the European Court is that Britain is, if you like, in breach of its regulations and rules far less than quite a lot of other European countries. And so the British legal and judicial and parliamentary system
Yes.
actually will have some weight
Yeah.
with judges in Strasbourg.
No, but
as well.
the case will be judged on its merits, not on a past list of cases where Britain has been less in breach than other countries. And the list that I gave you of what looked to be, on the face of it, breaches of international law. How, again, do you square those? You started to say that it's just the beginning of the parliamentary process. Are you suggesting that it will be changed in the course of that? And will you play any part of that? Are you saying both of those things?
No, I'm not saying whether it will be changed or not. I mean, most bills get amended a bit, but I think, I mean, you just asserted that these are breaches of international law.
I'm suggesting it might be from what we can see.
Neither you nor I are lawyers, and also what is a breach of international law is only a breach of international law if an international court decides that. So we are a long way away from that. I think one of the most significant, if you like, purely legal pieces in this legislation is the negotiations, if you like, with the Strasbourg court to change the Article 39 judgment, which are these interim judgments that are given by a judge who remains anonymous, and where in the case of the case of the Rwanda case, the British government wasn't allowed to make submissions. Now,
Yes.
that I'm not a lawyer, but that absolutely breaches all the rules of natural justice.
Yes.
So I think the Strasbourg court itself is going to have to change the way it operates in the interests of justice.
Okay, that's again more of an interesting perspective, especially from you, Damien. Now, just one more before we let you go. I could carry on with this conversation for another half an hour, but I'll never have enough time for these conversations. We do not have the arrangements, the bilateral agreements in place to send the people who are, according to the legislation and according to its a retrospective application, to be put into detention. That is a big hole in the plan. It is fair to say we want to deter people from coming here because they'll be sent to other countries. There's no other countries to send them to. What do you say to that concern?
Well, it depends which countries they're coming from.
Well, Albania is different, but other than that, and Rwanda, where the question's in the air, and we're only talking about a couple of hundred places, there are no arrangements.
Well, Albania is a third of the people who came last time, so that is the biggest single group. And if you solve that, then you've already solved a third of the problem.
What about the others, Damien? That's my question.
But the others, I mean, it will depend on the individual countries. You know, we used to, I mean, when I was immigration minister, I remember going to look at a removal flight that was going to Ghana, for example.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we can and have in the past removed people to other countries. So, and yeah, obviously, in terms of whether you are eligible for asylum or not, a lot of that depends on the country from which you're coming.
Yes.
So that's one thing. And the other thing, of course, is the one thing that's happened since my time as immigration minister was the introduction of the Modern Slavery Act, which is a very good act, but which clearly has been exploited as a loophole by many thousands of people looking at the numbers. And closing that loophole will itself act as a deterrent.
Okay.
The one thing we haven't said is that, of course, all of these measures are designed to stop people getting on dangerous boats in the first place.
Deterrence is the first objective. I'm going to have to move on, Damien. Against my inclination, I would love to talk to you and get your thoughts on this at greater and greater detail, but we have to move on. Well, I'm John Pienaar, and if you found that interesting, we are here each day, Monday to Thursday, 5 o'clock till 7 o'clock on Drive, and from 7 till 8, Pienaar and Friends, where we discuss the big stories of the day each day on Times Radio.